I didn't plan on becoming a mother alone, but life rarely asks what we're ready for. I was 24 when I found out I was pregnant. Her father left 2 weeks later, said he wasn't built for fatherhood, said I'd figure it out, and I did. I gave birth in a government hospital. No hand to hold, no name on the birth certificate but mine. And when they placed her in my arms, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. Not from pain, but from fear. Fear of not being enough, of not knowing how to love the right way, of being both mother and father and still falling short. But when she opened her eyes, I knew I would never let her feel alone, not like I had. I named her Clara because it meant light, and she was mine. We didn't have much, hand-me-downs, cheap pasta, second-hand toys. But she never saw the cracks because I patched them before she could touch them. I worked nights cleaning offices. I went to school during the day with her strapped to my chest. I missed sleep, parties, jobs, and love. I missed everything except her because she was everything. They told me, she'll grow up and thank you for all you did. And for a while, I believed them. But what no one tells you is this. Sometimes the child you raise with all your love grows into someone who resents the weight of that love. Sometimes, no matter how much you give, they only remember what they never asked for. And one day, they say the one thing you swore they never would. When people say, "I'd do anything for my child," they usually mean they'd protect them from danger, buy them what they need, show up when it matters. But I don't think most people understand what everything really looks like. It looks like skipping meals so she could have seconds, like pretending you're not tired after 3 jobs, like smiling through every birthday with nothing but homemade cake and borrowed decorations. It looks like learning to braid hair from YouTube videos because no one ever braided yours, like showing up to parent-teacher meetings in the same coat every year, like hiding eviction notices and still making her feel like the queen of the world. Clara never knew how much I held behind my back just so she could walk forward, and I never told her. Because love, real love, doesn't need applause. It just needs to show up. I remember when she was 6, she stood on a chair and tried to make me breakfast, burned the toast, spilled the juice. She was so proud. She said, "You're the best mommy because you're always tired and you still hug me." I laughed, and I cried in the bathroom after she left for school. When she got older, I saved every note she wrote me. Sticky notes that said things like, "Good luck today," and "I love your face." I didn't date. I didn't travel. I didn't dream, because she was my dream. And for a long time, that was enough. They say you're not supposed to make your child your world, that you should keep something for yourself. But I didn't. I gave her everything, and the truth is, I didn't mind. Until the day she told me I'd taken too much. It started with the phone calls. She used to call me every day, between classes, after work, when she was walking home. Even if it was just to say, "I don't really have anything to say." But then the days got longer, the calls got shorter, and the silences in between started to stretch. I told myself she was busy, new job, new friends, a boyfriend she didn't want to introduce me to, yet. I told myself that this is how it's supposed to be. Children grow up, they need space, but deep down, I knew the space wasn't just distance, it was detachment. She started talking differently, more polished, more careful, like she was editing herself before speaking, like she didn't want to sound like where she came from, where we came from. I noticed she never invited me to her apartment. She always came to mine, and even then, she brought her own food, wore different clothes, smelled like someone else's perfume, someone wealthier, sharper, unfamiliar. Once I offered her a necklace I had worn in her baby pictures. She smiled and said it wasn't really her style. And it hit me harder than it should have. I kept trying, sending messages, bringing up childhood memories, reminding her softly that I was still here, that I had always been here. But love doesn't always echo. Sometimes it just vanishes into someone else's silence. What hurt the most wasn't the absence. It was the pretending. The part of her that acted like nothing had changed, like I should be grateful for the little she still gave. And maybe I was. Maybe I wanted so badly to stay her mother that I was willing to ignore the signs. Signs that the girl I once carried through the darkest years of my life had already decided to walk away. It happened on a Sunday. She had come over for lunch, the first time in weeks. I made her favorite, roasted chicken with lemon and thyme, the way I always used to when she came home from school, exhausted and heartbroken, except this time. She barely touched it. She scrolled on her phone between bites. Didn't ask how I was. Didn't look me in the eyes. I asked how things were going. Her job. Her boyfriend. She answered in half sentences. Dismissive. Cold. And then I asked something simple. Something stupid, maybe. If you ever get married, would you let me help with the dress? She set her fork down, took a deep breath, and laughed, not kindly. Mom, she said, do you even hear yourself? You're always stuck in the past. You act like everything is still about you, like I owe you something. I blinked. She kept going. You act like I should be grateful for being raised by a single mom who had nothing. But guess what? I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask to grow up struggling. I didn't ask to miss out on things because you did your best. I said nothing, not because I didn't have words, but because hers had already cut too deep. And then she said it, the sentence that broke something I didn't know could break. You ruined my life. Just like that. No tremble in her voice, no regret in her eyes. I could have been someone else if I hadn't had to carry your sacrifices. I looked at her, at the girl I once carried through sickness, through heartbreak, through hunger, and I said, nothing. Because what do you say to the child who once called you a hero and now calls you a burden? I cleared the table, put the leftovers away, washed her plate, and that night I opened the drawer where I kept the will. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because she said she didn't want anything from me. And for the first time, I decided to believe her. His name was Raymond, my lawyer. He'd helped me draw up the original will 5 years ago when I bought the house, when I thought I finally had something to leave behind. Back then, I remember saying, I don't have much, but at least when I'm gone, she'll have something. He smiled and said, she's lucky to have you. Now I sat in his office again. Same man, same smile, but a very different reason. I need to make some changes, I said. He looked up, paused. To your beneficiaries. I nodded. He didn't ask why, didn't press. Just picked up his pen and said, all right, let's begin. I named someone else, a woman who had cared for me in small, quiet ways over the years. Lucia, my neighbor's daughter. She'd bring me soup when I was sick, helped with groceries during the pandemic, called me Tia even though we weren't related. She never asked for anything. She just showed up. So I wrote her name down. The house, the savings, my jewelry, even the dusty piano Clara never learned to play. All of it, transferred with one signature. I stared at the line before signing, not with anger, not with satisfaction, just a kind of stillness, because I wasn't taking anything away. I was just releasing it. I was honoring the words Clara had thrown at me like stones. You ruined my life. I don't want anything from you. And so I gave her exactly that. Nothing. Not out of revenge, but out of respect. Because when someone finally shows you who they are, you don't argue. You just write it down, sign it, seal it, and walk out quietly before they rewrite it for you. The years passed, quietly. The way time moves when you stop expecting anything from it. I stopped trying to reach her, stopped checking her social media, stopped waiting for birthdays, holidays, crumbs of attention. Instead, I started living small joys, planting lavender on the windowsill, learning to bake again, feeding the birds every morning like they were old friends who remembered my name. My health began to fade. Nothing sudden, just the slow unraveling of a body that had carried too much, too long. One morning I collapsed in the kitchen. The doctor said it was my heart. I smiled, not out of irony, not out of despair, but because I'd already been letting go long before my body did. I called Raymond, told him everything was in place, that I had no regrets. He said most people panic when the end nears. I said I already did my grieving years ago. A week before I was scheduled for a risky procedure, my phone rang. It was Clara. I stared at the screen. The name that once made me feel whole now felt like a ghost. I answered. Her voice was shaky, different, softer. "I heard about your health," she said. "You didn't tell me." I didn't respond. I was angry. I didn't mean what I said back then. I was lost. I needed someone to blame. Still, I said nothing. "I want to see you," she whispered. "I want to know if there's still time." I took a breath. "I'm not mad," I said. "I'm just finished." She went quiet. "I respected your wish," I continued. "You said you didn't want anything from me. I believed you." "Wait, are you saying—" Her voice broke. I could almost hear the pieces falling inside her. "I changed the will, Clara, years ago." "No, Mom, please. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it." "I know," I said. And then gently, "But you meant it when it mattered." Then I hung up. Not in cruelty, in clarity. Because apologies that come after the consequences aren't apologies. They're just fear in disguise. They say silence is what happens when love dies. But that's not true. Silence is what happens when love refuses to keep begging. I didn't raise Clara for recognition. I didn't stay up through her fevers or skip meals or hold her through nightmares because I wanted to be repaid. I did it because I loved her. But love that is ignored, love that is turned into guilt, into shame, into something to resent, that love cannot live forever. The truth is, I mourned her long before she picked up that phone. Long before her wedding that I never attended. Long before the will was changed. I mourned her in the quiet hours, in the space she left behind in my voice, in the way I learned to make dinner for one, in the way I stopped waiting. And when I finally stopped hurting, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. You don't always have to scream to leave. You don't have to slam the door. You don't have to write a final letter or explain your reasons. Sometimes, you just stop unlocking the door. And if they ever knock again, you don't answer out of anger. You stay silent out of peace. Because once upon a time, I gave her everything. And in the end, I gave her exactly what she asked for. Nothing.